Hello and welcome to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate podcast. You've got myself, Jim Riley, and Rod Kuntz. Rod, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Jim.
We're in the middle of what I heard somebody describe as dead week. I've never heard that term before. Have you?
Never.
Dead week. It's the
Never.
week between Christmas and New Year's where I get, most businesses are shut down. That's pretty obvious. Or people that are working aren't doing a lot. I don't include myself in that list of not doing a lot because I've been pretty busy this week. But somebody described it as dead week. And it's a week to reset, reorganize, and get prepared for 2023 in our case. But no, I've never heard that before. It's kind of interesting.
I always thought it was exchange and refund week. But I could see that, right? It's cleaning up from the holidays, right? And I think the best thing for me at this point in time is that it gives you a chance to reassess, even with returning items. And I do have, some of the gifts that we got are coming back and we're going to have to do the exchange thing and all that. So it's not over yet, but it really causes you to clean up, right? You have to clean up last year to get into next year. So let's clean up what we need to clean up first, Vaughn.
Yeah, I'm not sure I like the connotation of dead week, but
I don't like it at all.
I have said often, or for many, many years, that this is a great week to ramp up your business efforts and be prepared for next week when people start coming back to work. Now, when you're working for yourself, in my opinion, this is a good time to get ahead of everybody and utilize the time where people are playing dead week, doing something else.
Yeah. Well, if nothing else, let's rephrase that.
Yeah.
Let's do that and let's call it catch your breath week, second wind week. Change the narrative a little bit here. I hate to use that. It seems like it's everywhere you look now. It changed the narrative. I don't want to be saying that.
Yeah.
However, we can make a difference by the words we choose.
Well, it's appropriate, right? It is appropriate. Change the narrative because a lot of people are stuck in a different narrative, which leads me to today's topic, which, look, it's going to be a little bit of a cliche or an expectation from our listeners, but I do want to talk about goal setting and the future, okay? And just kind of referencing my own book, The Freedom to Say Yes, that is on Amazon. If you haven't picked up a copy, you can grab it. The Freedom to Say Yes. Chapter 7 is about goals. And I kick off that chapter with a quote from my buddy, Andy Frisella. He says, everyone makes resolutions. Winners make lists of shit they're going to do.
Yeah.
I like that. Winners make lists of shit they're going to do. And it's funny because I'm looking across my desk. I have a list I started this morning of things. I'm sure they're going to get done too.
I have a list as well, Jim, and there's things to be learned from my list because my list is literally from last week. And then I had some unexpected medical issues, right? Dental issues that popped up. And my list is still there from last week. I'm crossing things off today that I'd hoped to cross off literally a week ago. And they're still on the list and there's still goals, there are things to do. But you can't get frustrated. You need to just go back to the list, go back to your goals. And I like what your book always says. This is your chance to get ahead. When other people are slacking off and taking that break, this gives you that chance to take one step out. If that's that one thing, we've talked about that before too.
Yeah.
What is the one thing you can do? Well, this is one thing you can do. Get your list out, dust it off. And if you had setbacks, that's okay. Acknowledge them and move forward.
Well, let's talk specifically about, goals, writing them down, the importance of writing them down, and how to approach them. And, I know that we look at them differently because we operate from a foundation of having goals and being long-term goal setters or list makers or whatever it is that you want to call them. But I want to give people some tools, and I'll start with what I do. And then Rod, you can talk about what you do, but there's two ways that I approach my goals. And I would say first and foremost, before I even make the approach on the goals, is that I've established what my values are, my own personal core values. I've talked about them a lot on my podcast and in our group, the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. And that is, my values are God, family, health, giving back, right? Making time to be able to do all those things. And then finally, my last value is business. And if I use that structure of values to create my goals, I know that my goals are going to be targeted towards my own happiness, right? And so then when I look at the year and what I look to achieve for the year in terms of goals, whether that business is business or pleasure, they're already aligned with my values. So I know they're going to be on target. And I build out very, very specific goals with timelines and expectations and what that looks like. And the reason why I'm so clear on that is so that I can utilize that clarity in my visualization process, which I don't do as much as I should, but I like to visualize what that looks like, achieving that goal. What does the finish line look like in my head? So that those goals become very tangible items in my mind and on paper. And by the way, writing them down is way more powerful than typing them out on your computer. Now, I do both. I create a spreadsheet where I map out my goals, both short-term, long-term. I assign monetary value to them if they're things that are going to cost money. But I also write them down on a regular basis so that I have the act of transferring that information from my head to my hand to the paper that I can look at frequently that's been written down. And I think that's a very powerful tool. And then finally, a new practice that I've started in the last couple of years, and this is something, I'll give Andy another shout out, something that I started because of Andy, is creating 5 critical tasks per day and working towards achieving each of those 5 tasks every day. And I've found that if I do that, I'm generating specific momentum towards my goals and things that I want to get done. Also, within those 5 critical tasks, I've built some habits that I wouldn't normally create. I've talked a lot about the books that I've read in the last 90 plus days. Part of that is because I was on 75 hard, which reading 10 pages is a requirement. But I've read 6 books in 90 days, really good books, matter of fact, things that I've learned from. And so by writing down the critical task of reading every day, it has now become a habit. And so that's not part of my 5 tasks now. It's a habit that I've formed from that critical task list. And that's the goal. If you can create some critical tasks that turn into habits, you become a more efficient person, not only in a number of ways, but also maybe a better person, or you've increased your capacity to achieve things. So 2 things, and I'm going to turn over to you here, Rod, is 1, have your goals written down, be very, very specific, and add to it a critical task list if you can. Now, you don't have to do anything fancy with that. I actually bought, Andy's got a book on his website. It's called The Power List. And what I like about it is that it's hardbound and it's really blank paper, right? It's got some lines. It's got numbers 1 through 5. It says, what book are you reading currently? Any notes? And then on the second page, it's just more space for notes. But what's cool about it is because it's hardbound, when you're done with it, you can keep it and then buy another one and another one. And then you can look back years later and go, wow, look where I was 5 years ago. You know, this was a major thing at the time, and now I don't even think about it anymore. So goals and critical tasks. That's how I'm approaching 2023. That's how I have approached life in general. But these are 2 great tools that you can take into 2023 and start these practices for yourself. So Rod, what do you do? How do you formulate your goals and activities and push into the new year?
Well, I'm gonna go back in time and first say I used to just fly by the seat of my pants.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, it was okay. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to chase after it, and I'm going to get it done, right? And as I got older, and especially as I got into business, I realized that's not good enough. You really have to spell it out. And if you don't have it spelled out, especially profit and loss, right? Your expense column and what it's going to cost, you have to look at all that stuff first. And writing it down is absolutely critical. So I didn't do that when I was younger. I learned to do that mostly out of necessity, business necessity. And then when I saw the value in it, I became addicted to it. And you and I have worked together long enough. You kind of get an idea of what goes on in my head. I'm always trying to create order out of chaos. And the world is chaos. And that's what we get to do, is put it in some sort of order. And putting it on paper is the first thing that gives you power over it.
Yeah.
So writing those goals down is so essential. And the other thing I learned, and this came from being not only in business, but probably mostly from being a parent, and that is the plan's constantly changing. There are things that happen and happen to us, not because of something we didn't do or because we didn't plan for it, but things sometimes just happen. I mentioned earlier, I had a dental issue this last week, a broken tooth, critical issue, and it happened, of course, on a weekend. And you still have to deal with that. You have to go through it. It was nobody's fault. It just happened. And you have to sometimes be willing to acknowledge it and change the plan. So when we first started, when you first said this is what our conversation is going to be today, I was thinking about what it is I do. And here it is. It's the 3 R's. This is really simple. I just wrote it down because I didn't have it written down before, but this is what I do. I, number one, review my goals. This is that look backward. What were my goals last year? So I'm going to review them. The after actions report. We're going to look at it and how did we size up to our goals? Did we accomplish them? Why or why not? Some of it's out of our control. What's in our control? What can we do to mitigate what's outside of our control next year? And what can I do better that is in my control this year? So review the goals. Are they still current? Do they still line up with your values? Is it still relevant to the business world today? So review the goals is number one. That's the first R. Second R is revise the goals. There's always something we can tweak, change, make better, set it. And maybe it's just changing it from a long-term goal. Maybe those are now midterm goals and we need to make different long-term goals. The idea is setting goal after goal after goal. We never achieve it all until we leave. Until we leave this planet, we don't get to say we did it. We always have to go from goal to goal to goal. And so having a short-term goal, a medium goal, and a long-term goal should constantly be under revision, because we should be attaining those short-term goals and then setting new short-term goals. And so revising goals, that's number two. And number three, and this is probably the biggest one, and if it takes a New Year's resolution to do it, here it is. Recommit to your goals. Just recommit. If we fell short, if the world got on top of us, if we got behind, we didn't get it done, we don't need to beat ourselves up. We need to recommit. So spend that energy, that mental energy, not on looking backward. Recommitting keeps you looking forward. And I'm in a constant state. And like I said, parenting probably did that more than anything, because there was always something that came up. 4 children and life and all the activities and trips to the emergency room and running goals had to be shifting, constantly moving. And the goal itself didn't change, but the timeline would change.
Sure.
And so it seemed like a changing goal, but it really was a timeline issue. And not beating yourself up for those things. So important to just know that even though you're not in control, you can be in control of yourself. And that can be a goal. How can I better be in control of myself to achieve these goals? So those are my 3: review your goals, revise your goals, and recommit to your goals. Again, write them down though. You can't review them, you can't revise them, you can't recommit if you don't have anything to look at.
Yeah. And I appreciate that recommit, because oftentimes we'll write our goals, we'll fall short. And then all of a sudden it's, oh, well, I'm not going to achieve that. And you start walking away from it. And the reality is it might just take a little bit more time. And so instead of quitting, recommitting to focusing on that goal and achieving it, you can find success in it. Obviously, you've had it there for a reason. Now you may revise it, but to recommit to it is really important. So thanks for bringing that up. I was just thinking later after this show in a few days, my interview with Raylan Davis is coming on. You'll find it on this channel. And Raylan talks about something, it's really about coaching. And we have, if you haven't seen our Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, Rod and I started this group. It's almost been a year now. We've got a great group of entrepreneurs and what we call intrapreneurs in there. And, we're teaching things that we've been doing our entire lives. And I don't want to say that it is so like you're not going to get it anywhere else. But what it serves as is a great reminder, just like this podcast, a great reminder of the things that you could be doing to improve and be better. But there's so many tools. You don't necessarily have to pay for those tools. You just need to know where to get them, the resources, et cetera. So I would love for our listeners to dive in and figure out how to become better, how to chase after those goals and find happiness within their goals and the things that they want to achieve. And if you need help along the way, Rod and I are here for you with the syndicate, or there's a lot of tools available to you. Heck, you could even just go on our website, theyoungentrepreneurs.syndicate.com, and look at the books that we've recommended in our library. I would guarantee you, if you picked up 5 of those books, you'd have everything you need for the rest of your life to sustain your own abilities. But the reason why I'm bringing this up, Rod, is because when I listen to your 3 R's, the recommit part, it just that's where coaching falls in, is let us help you recommit or keep you accountable, because oftentimes we just fall short. We allow ourselves to walk away, and that's what I love about what we do.
It's easy to walk away if it's just you, but if you're accountable to somebody else, and that's what I also like about the syndicate here, is we are accountable to one another. Mm-hmm. And staying plugged in, there's so much value in that. We need to be recharged, constantly recharged. And that's emotionally, mentally, and inspirationally. We need to have a constant recharge. That's why we're continuous readers. You look at your bookshelf, you look at my bookshelf. We constantly need new input to keep us motivated, to get new ideas and to keep moving forward. And part of those new ideas come with being plugged into a place regularly. And that's why I like podcasts that we follow on a regular basis, and people who follow us on a regular basis, both on the podcast and within the syndicate on our Zoom calls. It's a commitment, number one, and it holds you accountable, but it keeps you charged. We lose that charge if we're not constantly being pressed to move forward. We need that to keep going. And I think that's critical. So that can be part of your recommit to get to your goals, is what am I doing to stay charged up? What am I doing to keep my energy level, my mental level at 100%? Because I guarantee you it's going to go down, and it's going to go down. And all these things are wearing on it throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year. What are you going to do to keep that charge level up? And some of it's just plain momentum. Mm-hmm. We're self-charging systems, but we have to get that momentum to keep going. And I think that's what we are, is we're a momentum team. We keep the momentum going.
That's right. Well, I'm going to add a little jet fuel to this as we wrap up this show. And I'd like you to comment on it as well. One of the things that I'm recommitting to in 2023 is something that I've practiced most of my life, but I want to elevate the practice, and that is more giving. I want to be more giving than what I've done in the past. In other words, we'll just use tithing as an example, because that's such a normalcy for people to talk about. It's biblical to tithe, and the suggested is 10% of your earnings, right? And you tithe before you pay yourself, or before you take care of others. So tithing is so important. Well, I want to look beyond that. And this is a practice that I started about 6 to 8 months ago, is looking beyond the giving level that I've done in the past and really elevating that. And not only is there a need out there for an elevated give back to the communities that we live in, our churches, our schools, but there's also a value as a family to operate under those conditions. And I've seen my kids grow and benefit from our giving as a family knowing that we're not being selfish with what we've been given and what we have. I literally watched my kids, and we talked about it. They just hadn't looked at it in these terms. They received some money for things for Christmas. And we talked about giving 10% of what we were given for Christmas. And my kids, they both received $75 total. So each of them pulled out their purses and pulled out $7.50 and put it in an envelope each to tithe to church, and it was neat to watch that. But the important thing there is that they're understanding the concept of giving a portion of what they've received back. And there's so much value in that. And we can do an entire show on that. I guess what I'm doing is two things. One is committing publicly that I'm going to elevate my own giving, but also to encourage people to look at the value of giving and what it will do for your own life. And, again, on another show, I'll talk a little bit more about what it's done for me, but the experience and the value that you will receive is incomprehensible once you start giving and making that a key factor in your life. So, Rod, any comments on that before we wrap it all up?
Yes, I will comment on that. Because two things. First, test me on this is what the good word says. Test me on this. If you give, you will get more. And we don't give to get, but it's a principle that is undeniable. And I'm so glad you brought it up. The second thing I'm going to bring this back to goals. And that is, I think it's so important when you're setting your goals to get your family involved. If you have a spouse, if you have business partners, if you have children, as a family, they need to understand what your goals are. Because if you're going to be late, or you're going to be traveling, or you're putting in extra time here, they need to understand why. And being a part of your goal setting is important as a family. I think it's going to make you healthier. It'll keep everyone on the same page. It's going to alleviate a lot of future stress. So when you are setting your goals, whether you're reviewing, revising, or recommitting, review, revise, and recommit with your family as well. You don't run as a solo, runner in this game. So get the rest of the team involved, whoever that team is in your life. And that's how I'll end on that note.
What a great reminder. I did a little bit of that this week, but I could do more. So thank you for that reminder. And by the way, my kids are 7 and 9, both girls. They understand. Don't use that as a crutch. Don't say, well, my kids are too young to understand this. Mine are 7 and 9, and we've spoken to them like adults since the day they were born. And it blows me away how much they do understand, how much they can articulate back to me, and how much they remember about the things that we've said and the things that we do. So, Rod, what a wonderful point, because our kids will also help hold us accountable as a family, especially if we place a level of importance on it. So I think this is a great way to start the year. I hope that the message resonates with you to write your goals down, review your goals, recommit to your goals, revise your goals if need be. Also, generating a critical task list to add value to those goals on a daily basis. And then look at and review your giving philosophy in your own life. And by the way, Rod and I both come from a Christian foundation, but you don't have to be a believer in Christ to be a giver. I would like for you to be, but I don't want you to use that as an excuse for you not to give. We can all give, and we can all give more. And so I would encourage you, if you're listening to this, to look at your own giving and what that feels like and looks like, and encourage you, if you can, to do more, especially in this time and age that we all live in. So, Rod, I just want to thank you as we head into the new year for being my wonderful business partner, for the things that you've helped me create, or us create, in our own give back of what we've learned, our life lessons, not only to our students at the school that we both teach. They call us adjunct professors, the things that we teach there, as well as the things that we teach in the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. We don't talk about it on this show, but we also have another business called the 1776 Syndicate, where we help people run their own election campaigns to become elected so that they can be more involved. So, Rod, I just want to thank you for all that. And I'm really, really looking forward to 2023 and the things that we do together, as well as with our other partner, Rachel.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you, Rachel. And thank all of the listeners out there. Tune in, pass this on to others, subscribe to the channel, and plug into us regularly. Reach out to us. Love to hear from you.
Right on. Well, we'll leave it at that. Share the show if you like it. That's the only way it's going to get out there. As you notice, we don't play commercials, so it's not like we're paying for ads. So anyways, have a wonderful kickoff to your new year. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.